Good afternoon. TechNation editor John Wallace here. I'm excited to be with you today as we learn more about the tool of the trade featured in the February issue of TechNation magazine, FSI's CMMS platform. Thank you to today's sponsor, FSI. Launched in 2002, FSI was created by and for healthcare service professionals and engineers, offering purpose-built CMMS specifically for healthcare managed operations. FSI's 1,000 plus hospital segments rely on a full suite of services and software that empowers their teams to use data to make smart decisions, including on-site data collection, barcoding, and CAD services. For more information, visit fsiservices.com. In today's Tools of the Trade live demo, we will learn how to optimize your hospital's biomed and HTM operations with FSI's CMMS platform. We will learn how to deploy a comprehensive, standardized, and scalable cloud-based software purpose-built for healthcare professionals with tools to standardize asset categories to keep your inventory accurate with compliance-focused features that help your team stay compliant. FSI's suite of products empower your users with complete, usable, and useful data, just one click away. Please note that the presenters have provided PDF handouts for attendees. These handouts are accessible via the webinar dashboard. Before we begin, I want to remind everyone that today's presentation is eligible for 1 CE credit from the ACI. 1 hour after the end of today's broadcast, you will receive an emailed survey. Completing that survey will grant access to a certificate that you can download and print from your computer. We will wrap up today's broadcast with a Q&A session. Please note that the webinar dashboard includes a questions feature. You can submit your questions for our presenters at any time during the demo. I am really excited to share that this year we are celebrating Webinar Wednesday's 10th anniversary. As part of the celebration during today's demo, we will be giving away a pair of Apple AirPods to an attendee that can answer the following trivia question. Which city will be hosting the Super Bowl for the first time on Sunday? You can answer now using the questions feature on your dashboard, and we will reveal the answer at the end of the webinar. Just to give you a hint, this city is also the site for the next Indie Expo. So stay tuned to find out if you are the lucky winner. Also, TechNation magazine is excited to announce that we are taking applications for the 3rd annual 40 under 40 powered by YP at MD. We're looking for HTM professionals who are under the age of 40 who have done amazing work for the biomedical industry. Applications and nominations are due by April 26th. You can apply at onetechnation.com/2024-40-under-40. There's also a handout in the handouts section of the dashboard that has more information about the 40 under 40. Now, today's presenters are FSI Solutions Engineer Manager Mike Zimmer and Director of Product Experience Joe Stockman. Gentlemen, you may begin whenever you are ready.
All right, thanks, and welcome everybody. So what we're going to be doing today is giving you a demo of our CMMS software. Everything you need in one CMMS is the title of our presentation. So we're going to give you a little bit of history of FSI. We are a healthcare-centric, healthcare-focused CMMS. We focus all of our development efforts and marketing efforts in the healthcare sector with both HTM departments and facilities departments and all operational service departments used in a hospital environment. We actually started, as pointed out, in 2002, just doing services work, doing asset data collections. And what that means is we had a team of individuals go through your hospital and put barcode tags on the equipment and add that to the asset inventory for your system. You know, we firmly believe that the data is the best place to start. Accurate data means you have accurate reporting and accurate compliance. We have extensive experience converting other systems into ours, into our database. And a lot of people we hire here at FSI come directly from the facilities and HTM biomed departments, including some of our implementation managers, data collectors, and support staff. We also have regular webinars. I'd say more than one monthly webinar for learning opportunities and information about some of our new products. We also have an annual on-site user meeting. This year it is in Charleston, South Carolina. I almost said West Virginia. Charleston, South Carolina next month. So a month away, we'll be in Charleston unveiling some new exciting features for our product. One of the things we're very proud about here at FSI is our 99% customer retention rate. Since our software launched in 2008, we have a very high retention rate. Once customers switch to our CMMS, they tend to stick with us. And we went from one hospital way back then to over 1,000 using our software. We're also in multiple countries. So just quickly, a little bit about me and Mike. If you want to go to the next slide. I'm the Director of Product Experience. My name is Joe Stockman. I started here in 2003. So I'm just starting my 23rd year here at FSI, or 22nd year, sorry. Been here 21, starting my 22nd. And then I've just been a part of that original data collecting team to data conversions to now managing the product and what the new features of the product are going to be for our future roadmap. And then we also have Mike Zimmer, and I'll let him introduce himself.
Hey, good afternoon, team. Mike Zimmer here, Solutions Engineering Manager. Really my job and my role during this webinar is going to be taking us through the different solutions that FSI offers to help support some of the key questions that need to be answered or needs that need to be met by healthcare technology management professionals. Good to be with you. All
right, thanks, Mike. So, we're hearing different things from HTM professionals. One of the top things we hear is we need an easy way to find our assets or find our work orders. So, how can we make that easier? With a shrinking workforce, which we also hear from a lot of customers, making yourselves more efficient is always a big goal of having a tool like CMS to use to complete your work and document your work. The other thing we hear is from other CMMSs is their mobile solution isn't very strong. I will say we were mobile from day one, even before the iPhones and iPads came out. We were on Windows CE devices, and then as soon as those devices were released, we started work on the versions of the iPad. I will say we're on our second generation of iPad software. I say iPad, I apologize. We also, I'll say mobile software also works with Android as well. And lastly, the data integrity. A lot of people, even whether it's their current CMMS or even FSI CMMS, if you don't have a data plan in place to maintain, update, and keep that data consistent, you're going to have trouble managing that. So a lot of struggles around data integrity, and we have experts that help you manage that as well. So that brings us to our first poll question.
Okay, your first poll question is, how would you rate the accuracy of your asset inventory data? I'll give you a couple of seconds to answer, from inaccurate, somewhat accurate, or very accurate. Okay, so I'm going to close the poll. And Mike and Joe, your answers are, you have got 19% at inaccurate, 65% at somewhat accurate, and 15% at very accurate.
All right, thank you. And that's pretty expected. I will say in the past, we always used to get very accurate as the main answer to that question. But I think people are now realizing that, we have a pretty good idea, but it might not be as accurate as we want it to be. So there's always an opportunity there to make sure your inventory is accurate. And we still do offer those services as well. 21 years later, 22 years later, we still have full-time crews out there doing the asset inventory. One part of our mobile solution is our floor plan view. And we've fully stressed, if you document while you're doing the service, so if you're out in the field doing that service, or if you're bringing that device back to your shop doing the service, using a mobile device or using the computer, if you are fixing those things in the field, our mobile software really helps you get to those, that document that repair or that PM or ITM work order very quickly. With our floor plan view, you can visualize the location of your assets and work orders. During the demo, we'll show you where you click on the icon to actually pull up a work order where you can complete that. If there's an opportunity to create a new work order, you can do that right from the floor plan as well. And again, while you're completing that, you're entering your time, any materials used, right there at the point of service. And again, wherever that point of service may be. If you have data readings or outputs you're collecting, those are fully customizable where you can record those directly in the software on the mobile device or on the desk computer. The nice thing about the mobile software is it works online or offline. So if you are working, if you're going into an area that may not have good Wi-Fi, this will work offline and your data will go with you. And then when you come back on, you sync that data back up. It's sort of a hybrid mode where if you're connected, it syncs immediately. But if you're disconnected, when you get back online, you go ahead and sync that. And it works on iOS, Android, and Windows. So with that, it takes us to our second poll question.
Okay, your second poll question is, does your organization use an RTLS? Yes, no, or not sure? Give you a couple of seconds to answer.
It's real-time locator software for.
Okay, I'm going to close the poll. Okay, right, Joe, you have got 30% at yes, 48% at no, and 21% at not sure.
All right, great. That's great information for us. I'm always curious how many people have implemented those RTLS systems. We do have some integrations that we can roll out with that as well, and actually move those icons around in our CMS View program. So. The other benefit of FSI and CMS being fully healthcare based is, we really help you maintain your regulatory compliance. You could automate that compliance with our eBinders product. What that does is it runs reports on a regular basis and automatically puts them into our document manager. It helps you stay on top of any PMs and make sure you're following up on corrective work. So if you have to, if a device fails, it does create a separate work order for you, and you can use that to track how long that's been open and when it's completed. And again, the summaries of each piece of information inspectors want to see most, like the summaries of how many devices passed, how many failed, are right at the top of those reports as you look at our eBinder product. So we also have a dashboard that lets you see sort of an overview of each of the regulatory standards, whether you're Joint Commission or DNV or CIHQ, or you're looking at a state requirement as well. Again, CMS stands for custom maintenance software, which means fully customizable. So you can put whatever compliance codes that you're using into the system, as well as use the standard one. So that's going to bring us to the next phase, which is me not talking anymore and handing it over to Mike and giving you a demo of the software. So.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Joe. You're not off the hook, as you know. So when you want to hop in and maybe steer the conversation, add some additional value to what we're going to be covering, feel free to do so. This should be kind of a dialogue between you and myself. And it'll also make for a little bit more interesting listening. I have a smooth jazz radio voice, and it's difficult to really stay engaged with it over the long term. Just self-aware like that. So team, what I've got the the responsibility of doing over the following demonstration is kind of showing the instrumentation of those different topics that Joe had just gone over. Like, what can we do from a supporting the technological implementation or institution of a data integrity policy that you might have there within your organization? How do we control the quality of the data? How do we make sure that it's got a high degree of integrity as technicians and other staff members are interacting with the tool? What do we have in the mobile application that's going to make it very, very easy? Because we need to make the input of relevant and compliance required data just really straightforward and not cognitively demanding. We all have day jobs. Your technician staff needs to be focused on doing the job that you hired them to do, which is making sure that your medical devices are maintained and operating correctly. Then I'd also like to touch on towards the tail end of our demonstration, really the output, right? So, Mr. Stockman did mention, we have the ability of automating all, if not the majority of your compliance documentation and reporting. So I'm going to want to make sure to leave you all with that. And then we'll transition over into kind of a Q&A and discussion of some of the other capabilities that maybe you've got curiosity around. Okay, so that being said, let's take on the topic of how do we make sure that the system is going to foster an environment or have some guardrails up around it so we could protect the long-term integrity of the data. So let's jump over into CMS. And we're going to jump right into a view of information that I'm sure everybody on today's webinar is pretty familiar with, and that's a look at a component of our medical device inventory, right? Now, there's a lot that we can cover here. I could talk about the fact that the roles, the user permissions within the tool follow what is known as the principle of least privilege, so that each individual or group of individuals that are interacting with the tool are only ever going to have the ability of modifying the information that's relevant for their day-to-day task. Of course, that is a capability in how we construct our solutions. I could also speak to the fact and demonstrate, the fact that we can tailor these different views. We can filter down to a collection of records across the entirety of the application that makes sense for different users to interact with, and then save those views, et cetera. Right, and for the most part, that's a pretty table stakes based functionality within the tool. But it is important that we check the box here. So what is CMS capable of doing to ensure that the people with the appropriate level of permissions can interact with the data, keep it up to date, and make sure that it fits within the requirements that you all have for high integrity data capture against things like medical devices. So the first thing really is you have to ensure that there's a solution that is flexible enough to capture the data that your organization has deemed super important, so that you can ultimately report against it and provide some meaningful insights to the rest of the organization. CMS is a good example of one of those solutions where you're not hamstrung by any sort of limitations around the kind of information, the characteristics that you're going to be gathering about your medical equipment. I had scrolled quickly through this asset record. Maybe we come up to the top here. Of course, we're going to identify it with an asset number, right? We're all expecting that. Further characterizing it from kind of a model-based hierarchy of information here on this medical piece of equipment, so that we're making sure to associate the correct manufacturer or chain of custody of different manufacturers, as is the case with medical equipment. Sometimes that changes hands. And we can search, we can query against all this information in that list view, so that if I'm not completely up to date with who's currently owning this particular make of infusion pump, I can search for what I've got at the top of my head, and I can very easily pull back the information that I'm needing. Everything else from a healthcare CMMS perspective, we're going to make sure that you have the opportunity to score the assets from both a patient risk as well as AEM inclusion point of view, and that has all the downstream impacts to the way that we maintain and then report against that asset's performance, as well as certain financial attributes against this piece of equipment. So if we're looking at a medical device record from just kind of the pure taxonomy of it, we have the information necessary, or the destination for that information necessary to capture that. Key pieces of information from a financial useful life perspective are also going to be in residence on our medical device record here. And then the final kind of face or dimension of a medical device that we're needing to capture, especially nowadays, is all of the networked based information. So again, your CMS is a fantastic tool that will be able to scale with your requirements around what data makes its way into your asset inventory, and what are we looking to track against that piece of equipment. This also kind of offers some interesting integration capabilities if we're tracking that information in your organization's CMDB. If you have curiosity about that, more than happy to talk about that later on in the demonstration or on a subsequent conversation at MD Expo or whatever the case might be. So, it's flexible to the point where we're going to be capturing all the appropriate levels of information. That's requisite. CMS does a fantastic job of that. Additionally, you're going to need a tool that allows for bulk changes to the device records themselves. So I've got this infusion pump, this Plum infusion pump list, currently selecting them all so that if I'm needing to update anything in bulk, really straightforward within the tool. And again, only the appropriate individuals are going to have this capability available to them. So, if we had this particular piece of equipment under an AEM and we made the decision to switch back to OEM, this is where we could change that risk classification in one fell swoop down into high risk OEM, whatever the case might be. I hit save, it updates all those attributes across the entirety of the inventory in a couple of clicks, making sure that all of the changes that we need to manage within the solution and the data set, very easy to accomplish and only available to the appropriate people. Now that's ongoing maintenance of asset data, and that's extremely important to make sure that we fill any gaps or make sure that there are no holes in our data over the long-term use of a tool like CMS. But do know that when it's time to, say, import a fresh batch of inventory, perhaps there was some sort of acquisition that occurred and we're needing to bring over that, acquired organizations' existing inventory. You can, of course, work with our team here at FSI to get that done, but do know that we also have importing capabilities within the tool as well, so that if I'm, again, an appropriately permissioned user, it's very straightforward to import assets in the, making sure to fill out or populate the information that's necessary and part of your organization's data integrity policy. So that's what I wanted to cover from kind of like a bulk data management point of view. Foundational capabilities, yes, but again, it's accomplished very easily and straightforward within the CMS solution. From here, what I'm wanting to do is shift gears a little bit from data maintenance to actually kind of adopting the persona of somebody that's out there, on the floor in the environment, completing activities against these medical devices and ensuring that it's an easy to use experience to them so that they can successfully document the work that they've done in a straightforward manner, as well as what capabilities are available through CMS Tech and CMS View in locating those devices. So let's go ahead and jump over into CMS Tech. As Joe Stockman had mentioned, this is device agnostic, right? So I've got it pulled up in this browser experience here, but more often than not, the work within CMS Tech is going to take place within a tablet form factor. It just takes advantage of that screen real estate very well on an iOS device or an Android device, but do know that it's also accessible from your phone as well. So, I log in, I'm going to have all the work that's assigned to me displayed in this card format or in an alternative format of the grid, but we're going to stick with cards for the purposes of today's webinar. And this provides us with a summary view of what's going on, what needs to get done, and where it's currently located. You'll see that the majority of the tasks in front of this user, Kelly Walters, is of a preventive nature. Of course, this is also going to include any and all other kinds of work that gets assigned to this specific user. So that when it's time to actually get the work done, I simply tap the pencil icon in the upper left-hand corner. This brings me into the main experience of the work order within our mobile application. Lots of information being displayed here, but I don't need to interact with it in order to get my job done effectively. So that if I'm simply wanting to jump straight into complete, it's one tap away. I come in, and in this case, we have procedures set up with different readings that need to occur. I enter in those readings either via, entering this data in, manually. Alternatively, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, we could use testing equipment. We do have an integration that's upcoming with a major testing equipment provider, where we would capture that information via that device, pass it over into CMS, and then we'd carry on with the rest of our work. The amount of time that I'm spending against this particular task is automatically being captured. Again, we're not wanting individuals to spend time noting the amount of time that they're spending. We'd much rather gather that automatically on their behalf. So once we close this work order or complete it, it'll document the amount of time, associate the correct rate, and then that then gets aggregated onto the asset record and informs things like our capital planning capabilities against your medical device inventory. And then, as is the case with a lot of mobile applications out there, we do have the ability of making sure we associate any parts that were consumed over the course of the completion of this work. But if that's not necessary, I simply come down here once I've entered in the data readings, I hit complete. So that's kind of our second tap outside of entering in the values on the readings, and it's going to automatically populate our completion date. Now this is the bare bones, like minimum number of fields that's required out of the box to close down a PM type work order within the solution. Of course, you can make organizationally specific changes to this so that you've got your finger on the pulse on exactly the kind of information that needs to be gathered over the course of PM's completion. Again, from an automation capability, kind of limiting the amount of interaction with the tool perspective, it should be noted that if we were to fail any of the readings that were to occur over the course of this particular PM, of course, a corrective maintenance work order is going to be automatically generated, referencing the failed procedures so that the individual knows exactly what step of the process failed the PM. And then also from a compliance perspective, and we'll talk about this a little bit later on, we'll have everything we need from a documentation perspective to make sure that we can showcase, hey, here are the PMs that were completed against these assets, here are the ones that failed, and here are the steps we took to address the issue. So that is, really straightforward, ease of use, kind of baked into our CMS Tech mobile application. Joe, should we go ahead and steer this part of the demonstration to start talking about incorporation of floor plans and how we can effectively locate these assets while we're out there on the floor?
Yeah, I think so, especially since we had a higher than anticipated rate of people using an RTLS system. So let's go ahead.
Awesome. I also use that as a moment to take a sip of water, so I appreciate that, Joe. Okay, so what's going on with CMS View? So in a nutshell, CMS View is FSI's capability of taking your pre-established space drawings and incorporating them into our solutions to provide additional value, right? So in the context of a mobile app, what this allows users to do is to pull up a floor plan. Alternatively, I could have done this on the work order, the PM itself, and then seen where that asset was located. But maybe I want to see this information in a little bit more of an aggregate fashion. So in this case, I've selected the 6th floor. Perhaps we use the 3rd floor instead. Nope, 6th floor looks good. I was looking at that earlier today. And so what I'm able to visualize here is not only any sort of corrective or preventive work that I might have associated to this particular drawing, but if I were to now scroll into the assets section, this allows me to place or visualize the asset's location where it's currently positioned, within this particular space. So let's take a look at where some of our pumps are located. So out of the box, what this is doing is it's taking the location represented on the asset record from kind of the core experience of CMS, and then positioning the assets in that manner. But with the high prevalence, I believe it was 30% of RTLS, we can absolutely integrate with RTLS solutions vendors. Don't know if we should mention specific logos, but the major ones we have already, integrated to those different solutions. So as locations are updating on that side of the solution fabric of your organization, it's going to push those changes into CMS so that the location associated to your devices is, of course, dynamic. Now, from this view of information, it's very easy to then, snap right down into the asset records themselves, if that's necessary, or if we need to, take a look at the work order history against this particular device, the schedules associated to it, we can edit these devices at that level of the application as well. Joe, anything to add at this point of the demonstration? Sorry for putting you on the spot.
Unmuting there. No, I always tricky to unmute if I had a nickel. But basically, yeah, the idea behind this is, you're spending a lot of time looking for that equipment. So if you do have an RTLS in place, and most of the equipment in the HCM world is movable, with the facilities department, a lot of that equipment's fixed, so it's easy to find. But as those devices move, when those are updated, they update here right in CMS view as well. So you're able to see where that next work order might be, or where that next asset might be, where you're locating that. So there might be one right next to you. When you're looking at the complete list of all the PMs that you have open, you'll be able to see sort of what's around you on the floor plan, or make sure you have everything completed on that floor before you, wait for the elevator. Sometimes those elevators take a long time and go to the next floor. So it's a really valuable time-saving method of helping you find the equipment, finding the corrective work orders, and all the benefits that come with an RTLS system. And the information we show comes right from the RTLS system. So there is some dependence on the accuracy of that system. So just keep that in mind as you're looking at that, if you're thinking about an RTLS system as well. But the main thing is the work orders are shown right here, right on the floor plans in CMS. So you don't have to switch between the systems in order to see that information. You don't have to oh, where's this pump, and then click on it, and then where's this pump, and then click on it. You see the complete list right in the program where you're completing the work. So it's very beneficial. So.
Yeah, great call.
Yeah, and that brings us to our next poll question as well. So we'll go ahead and pass it along for that.
Okay, thank you. Your next poll question is, are you using any device testing software? Yes, no, or not sure? Just give you a couple of seconds to do your response. Okay, I'm closing the poll. Okay, right, Joe and Mike. Yes is 39%, no is 50%, and not sure is 11%.
Okay.
All right, thanks. It's pretty close to half and half if you look at the numbers there. Maybe a little bit more weighted towards the no, but for the bulk of you using testing software, those integrations will definitely be helpful when those are released later on. So, but back to you, Mike.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to piggyback on that, so that the ability of leveraging medical testing equipment and having the results of the test be programmatically pushed over into the completion of something like the reading that needs to occur against these electrosurgical inspection units, units. Again, it's making as much value out of the time that you've got on the within the space. We know exactly where we need to go next. It's going to also lead to really, really crisp, clean data, because those readings are going to be pushed over automatically. There's no necessity to quote unquote fat finger the reading into the tool. And then of course, we've got the additional automation around corrective maintenance, automatic generation, and closing that loop from a documentation perspective. Okay, so now that we've covered parts of the tool that are in place to help enforce data integrity or keep the data with a high degree of integrity, and we've looked at the ease of use with which users can input data into the tool. Again, with the goal of making that as straightforward as possible, ensuring additional data integrity there. Let's start taking a look or thinking about what do we do with this data through the lens of compliance. Now, reporting is a passionate topic of mine. I love reporting against the data that gets captured within a CMMS solution like CMS, but we're going to look at this through the lensing of compliance, because that's a huge box that every healthcare organization needs to check, right? So we're going to set the stage with a out-of-the-box report that CMS comes with. And for anybody in the webinar audience that's like, oh boy, standard reporting, oftentimes standard reports, or at least in my experience, have a reputation of needing to be completely reconfigured upon implementation of a new CMMS solution to make them organizationally relevant. I've worked with a collection of different technologies within the CMMS space, with across HTM as well as facilities maintenance groups. So my opinion that I'm about to share here is, of course, a little bit biased because I now represent CMS and I work at FSI. But what I will say is that the standard reports available from CMS are extremely informed and influenced by those healthcare operation leaders that we currently have working with us today. So it's kind of a practitioner-based approach. And I think that the dashboard or the compliance report that I'm about to show you does a good job of really highlighting that fact. All right, so I've pulled up the compliance dashboard. That's what it's called within CMS. And when or rather, excuse me, what it's doing here is prompting me to select, which standards are we interested in seeing our compliance to. You'll notice that I picked all of them just then. So across TJC, DNV, CIHQ, et cetera, just to kind of showcase the fact that we are, let's say, standard agnostic. The solution can be configured to really meet the need of whoever your accrediting body might be. So I'm going to select the location that I'm interested in reporting against, and then the timeline, the date range that is of import to me. So now I'm going to hit view report, and what CMS is doing is it's taking a look at our performance across all those scheduled maintenance activities, where a relationship between the procedure exists to the standards that we're reporting against, so that ultimately it's going to provide me with a very easy to read and understand view on our compliance in kind of a date-based or calendar-based format, right? So here's where we take advantage of making sure that we've got strict controls around the quality of our data over the long-term use of the tool, as well as when the data is making its way into the solution. The increasing in intensity colors here is really telling us, Mike, this deserves your time and attention. You got to figure out what's going on here. So, across the various elements of performance in the case of this particular standard we're taking a look at, I can see that December of last year, we've got some incomplete inspections. Now that's a good visual indication, but it doesn't really help me interrogate the data to the level that I'm wanting. Perhaps I'm wanting to drill down or drill through into that. So I click on December, and now what I'm able to do is filter down the resultant report to include just incomplete inspections. And what this will ultimately show me are, what are those incomplete inspections? What were the procedures that we were supposed to do? What are the assets that we failed to put through the inspection process in the month of December for 2023? So in a couple of clicks, we're already able to establish, one, our compliance at a very high level. Two, we were able to get down into the details and see exactly what's going on. I can then, reference this work order number, maybe take a peek at who was assigned to that, and have some crucial coaching conversations, as one of my colleagues used to call it, with those individuals to make sure that we close that loop from a compliance perspective as soon as humanly possible. So pretty powerful report. I hope the team agrees with me there. But let's say that you may not want to be this deep into the solution to get these reports generated and saved. That's really where our e-binders or electronic binders come into play. Now I'm going to start off by showing you the output of our electronic binders, and then I think we have a little bit of time. Perhaps I can show you how these get set up within the system and exactly how straightforward that is, and ultimately what kind of value it's going to be able to deliver to your organizations. So on screen, I've got an example of an electronic binder that I pulled out of our demo environment. And really what this is in charge of showing at a summary level is, what standard are we interested in taking a look at here, the EP associated to it. Of course, we're going to want to see the effective date range that is of interest to us. And then finally, or not finally, next, we're going to be interested in knowing exactly what the procedure is associated to the standard in EP that we are effectively supporting the compliance with. Following that, we have a summary view of exactly what happened in the time range that we're looking at. So I can see the assets with that procedure schedule associated to it. How many failed? In this case, we're all good, so we're compliant. How many passed? The parent work orders, those are going to be the PMs that were ultimately generated. And then the child corrective work orders from any failures that were noted over the course of maintaining this part of the inventory. Following that, we've got an expanded view. So per asset, exactly what happened over the course of this PM. And we'd see any sort of failures, which step of the procedure failed, the corrective maintenance work order that was generated as a child, and then the steps we took to resolve the issue for that PM to be marked as complete and and compliant. So that's the eBinders output. Now, if we were to just briefly explore, I don't want to chew up a ton of time on this, although it does bear kind of a deep dive conversation. The administration of the electronic binder is very straightforward. It does take place in a component of our tool called the admin console. So if I were to go back into the home of the admin console, come down into reporting, you can see that we've got our regulatory dashboards. And really what the regulatory dashboard component of this setup is doing is associating the different EPs that we're interested in to the different procedures from our procedure library within CMS and connecting those two. So that's where that relationship is formed. It's extremely important that that relationship is formed because it makes everything else, it empowers you to leverage all the data that you're gathering over the course of the PM's completion. Following that relationship creation, we'd come into the electronic binders module itself. And this is really where we set up a couple of key components of making sure the electronic binders work the way that we need them to. One, we're going to establish a naming methodology for the titling of these documents, because as they get generated on the schedule of our choosing here, they're going to be saved in the document library portion of CMS. So they're thereby making it very electronic, which is the goal at the end of the day. But really what we're wanting to be the case is that instead of frantically hunting down a specific eBinder that you're needing at the point of inspection or sharing with other stakeholders, you know how to search for it. And so this is the eBinders document library in this particular instance of CMS. Really straightforward and easy to find exactly the eBinder that you're looking for. You then export it as PDF, and then you're off to the races effectively. Okay, so what did we cover over the course of that live demonstration? How does our solution, or what do you need out of a solution like CMS to help facilitate or institute a data integrity policy? How do we make it easy for those that interact with the data day in and day out in order to make sure that the high degree of integrity of the data making its way into the tool is in place? And then ultimately, how can we leverage that data from a compliance point of view in both the compliance dashboard that we took a look at, as well as the electronic binder capability as well? Joe, anything to add prior to us wrapping the demonstration portion of it and transitioning over into Q&A?
No, well, actually, yeah, I do have one quick thing to add on the electronic binders and the regulatory dashboard. And the design behind both of those is the regulatory dashboard, the one with all the green and yellow dots. It looks like that candy on the paper. That's designed to give you an overview. It's more for internal use, where you can go ahead and see how you're doing, and that sort of prepares you for the automatic generation of the electronic binders. And those electronic binders were designed to be inspector ready. That's what you show the inspector when they ask you for the documentation. And those all live right in our document manager. They get added to the document manager automatically as part of the overnight process of running reports. So you sort of set the stage for those, and then they run automatically. And the nice thing about that too is, even if you convert your data from an existing system over to CMS, once you link those procedures to the work orders, if you bring over work order history, you'll get that same report for your information in a previous system as well. So just one of the benefits of being healthcare and compliance based from day one. So.
Excellent, thank you, Joe.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, we've just touched on the tip of the iceberg or tip of the spear of what it is that we're capable of doing for our customers through the use of our solutions. If you have any questions or you're interested in exploring any of the other capabilities currently being shown on screen, of course, feel free to reach out to Joe or myself, and or reach out to us at sales@fsiservices.com. We really enjoy an opportunity of learning how our solutions can help you answer some of the questions that you've got in front of you or the requirements that you have out of a CMMS solution there within the HTM side of things. So with that being said, let's go ahead and transition over into our Q&A/discussion about what we covered today.
Great, thank you for such a great webinar. Lots of good information there. We had lots of questions coming in fast and furious. So you may have answered some of them during your presentation because some of them did come in early, but you can just hit on the answers again real quick. The first one is how do you manage asset service contracts?
All right, with our service contracts, we actually have a contracts module within CMS. And when you set up the contract, you could add multiple assets to that contract. You could also set a contract based on a location if you'd like. And then when any work order appears with that contract on it, it'll warn the technician or warn whoever opens that work order that, hey, this has a service contract on it. You may want to contact the vendor instead of doing the work on it and voiding the warranty or whatever verbiage you want to put on there as well. You're also able to search on, what's coming up, what's to be due, what's expiring, those components of a contract as well.
Fantastic. Another question that we had come in was, do you integrate in which ERP software?
I can take that one, Joe, if you'd like, and then you can add to if you'd like. I'm passionate about ERP integrations. So we do not currently have pre-built integrations to ERP solutions. Couple of different reasons for that. There's so many multiple versions of particular ERPs that are in use across our customer base today, that creating pre-built or pre-configured connectors is a little prohibitive due to that fact. However, it should be noted that we have a recently released public-facing kind of open API, which allows not just our resources the ability of integrating to a wide collection of different solutions out there, but also like external resources. So a third party, i.e. the ERP solutions vendor, may be interested in creating that integration. Alternatively to all of that, if you have the technical resources on staff there within your organization, they can also write the necessary calls between the different tools, being CMS and the ERP that is in use today.
Yep, thanks, Mike. And I think you got all of that crucial coaching session paid off, so we're good.
All right, and then what platform does the software use was another question that came in.
All right, a little bit of a technical question there, but
yeah.
We run on the Microsoft Azure or Azure platform, depending on when you learn how to pronounce it. So we are hosted in the cloud, a software as a service, multiple redundant servers, lots of good technical information there. We are also SOC 2 compliant for security purposes. So we have everything running, but mostly a Microsoft shop to answer the question.
So from a hosting perspective, that is all accurate. If this question was coming more from underlying functional architecture, it's all of our IP. We're not based on, we don't sit on top of any of the platform as a service providers. So I'm talking about things like ServiceNow or the Salesforce platform or things along those lines.
Okay. Another question we had was, does the system have an integration with FVA or ECRI alerts and recalls module?
That is upcoming. So Joe, maybe you can give us some detail around that.
Yeah, that is upcoming. It's on our to-do list, for lack of a better term. We've been reaching out. They're also releasing a new public API, and once that's released, that's when we'll work on that integration with them. They were not taking any new partners in the integration with their previous methods of integrating with ECRI. So there's a number of things we want to do with ECRI. We're just waiting for them to release that and their public API.
Yeah, and to add on to that, the major push around ECRI kind of dovetails nicely into the data integrity part of what we're talking about today, because that has to do with UMDNS, and then how do we leverage that taxonomy in helping our customers categorize or subcategorize their asset inventories.
Yeah. And our plan with them is that to help you sift through the data, you know, the recall notices that are coming through. You know, what we heard from our clients that are getting those emails is they get so many emails that they have to sift through that may not apply to them. So that's one piece that we're probably going to take a different stab at, is, you know, making it something that's actually, you know, intelligent enough to let you know what equipment you have with our standard models and serial numbers and manufacturers, and then having that, you know, only filter out the stuff that you don't need as well. So.
Joe, I think both you and I like over answering questions, but that was good.
I think so.
What other questions do we have?
Well, you have lots more, so you're going to have some that you're going to have to answer via email. So that'll be fun too. It's great that you're sharing all this knowledge. Now I'll be quiet and just ask questions. Someone asked about IoT and IOMT integrations.
Do you want to take that one as well?
What were the acronyms again? That was a little muffled. So
IoT, so Internet of Things, and Internet of Medical Things.
Yep.
All right.
So yeah, we're currently doing work with I think, and hopefully it's okay that I'm name dropping. I'm sure any FSI team members that have joined this webinar will let me know if it's not. We're currently working with Assembly to build an integration between CMS so that we can be alerted to any sort of issues or behavioral abnormalities of different network medical equipment. So we'll be kind of the antenna to receive those sorts of alerts that then gets articulated into a work order and gets assigned out to the appropriate technician. So we're starting with that particular partner, and then we'll branch off, or we'll continue with other partners as time goes on. That's really our work in that particular space right now.
Yeah, focusing, you know, our efforts first on the device security aspects and making sure there's no malware, and, you know, providing alerts that way through those software companies. We're actually working with a couple of different vendors on there, in addition to the one Mike mentioned. So.
Another question was, do you or how can you apply equipment risk factors?
Yes, the risk strategy is built into CMS out of the box. You could define it yourself, whether you want to put in the AMI standard, or if your hospital is already using a formula to track risk. And that risk could also drive the classification of the equipment as well, whether it's high risk, low risk. If you want to make it AEM, you can do that as well. So that's driven by the score of that equipment. So.
And then someone wanted to know and have some more information. There might be a typo in this. SaaS and on-prem solutions, or maybe online solutions.
Nope. So that no typo there. CMS is a SaaS solution. Joe Stockman answered, you know, where it's hosted in those redundant, highly available Microsoft Azure environments. We do not offer a on-prem version of the CMS solution set.
Correct.
And then how can your system help with equipment retirement?
With equipment retirement, there are some additional fields that you can make required during the asset offboarding process. So when you do mark a piece of equipment as retired, it does track the date. You can require notes to be put in on why that was taken out of service, whether you think it's lost or whether you think it's, you know, it broke enough where you threw it away, or you donated it, or whatever reason for that retirement, you can put in the notes. It also makes sure that it disables all the preventive maintenance work orders on that as well. And then it hides it. Most of our default searches within assets only show active equipment. So any search you do, you don't have to sort of say exclude the retired assets. It automatically does that. However, you can go in and look for the retired assets if you want to take that extra step to look and see what was retired in CMS. But they're not deleted because you do need that history associated with it as well. So we use the retirement method of tracking that, and all the work order history remains. You can still search on the work orders. It'll show that asset on the work orders. It'll be trickier to find that asset during the search without that additional step.
All right, one more question, and then we'll email you the rest of them because we're getting close to the hour mark. This one asks, can you show reports that are developed to present to EOC committees?
I will say any of our reports can be shown to EOC committees. I'm not sure exactly what the report you would run out of your system to do EOC. I know typically during an EOC round, there is a check to check the device tags, the last inspection date on the tags during EOC rounding. We do have that as part of our rounding software. I think, if you load the Joint Commission Tracer round into there, it shows in there as well. And then any work orders created from that round could be filtered directly to the biomed or facilities or EVS department, whatever department that is responsible for correcting those, or the department being inspected if it's rounding based not on the medical equipment, but specifically for HTM, those would come across as work orders. And then they would have access to see when those work orders are completed. Those would complete the findings in the round. So with that, you could, typically those have a different work order category of EOC or something along those lines that you may need to send that information or list over to that EOC department or safety department manager in your organization. But there's a lot of ways to answer that question. Hopefully I said enough things that answer that question, but also if I did not, feel free to follow up with a question to the email address on the screen there.
Real quickly, one more. So if I had an RTLS, could I pull up a floor and select a medical device type and find all of the devices on that floor with an open PM work order? That was a lot. Do you want me to read it again?
Yeah, no, I think I got it. I'm trying to think of the best way to answer that one. You can look at all the open PM work orders. They do show the different icons based on the type of equipment. You could also just show the device itself and show the ones that have an open work order on them as well. So yes, I would say yes to that one. I'm just thinking of the specifics on the type of device. Yeah. The other thing is if they're assigned, it also shows the only work orders that you want to see. So you're able to filter out. I think Mike showed the example of work orders assigned to you, which is the default view, but you could make your own searches to search any type of equipment. The idea is getting the work to the appropriate individual in the best way possible. And that could be someone doing PMs on the floor. It could be someone by a particular trade that are doing those work orders as well. So multiple ways to customize which work orders appear on the floor plan.
Great. And now I'm going to go into my auctioneer voice to try to get through my closing real quick. Thank you, Mike and Joe, for your time today and a great presentation. Lots of great information. I'd like to encourage everyone to visit today's sponsor at fsiservices.com. As promised, the answer to today's trivia question is Las Vegas. So congratulations to our winner, Adam Kreslin of Mary Greeley Medical Center in Iowa. Now, a quick reminder that you can obtain your CE certificate by completing the post-webinar survey. The survey will be emailed to you in 1 hour. You must complete the survey to receive your 1 CE credit from the ACI. And you will be able to download the certificate directly from your computer once the survey is submitted. If you have any questions, you can reach us through email at webinar@mvpublishing.com. We will be back next month with another Tools of the Trade live demo and another great prize as we continue to celebrate our 10th anniversary. Visit webinarwednesday.live for more details, a complete schedule of all upcoming webinars, and complimentary registration. And don't forget to look at the handout and nominate a colleague or yourself for the 40 under 40. Thank you so much for attending today. Thank you, Mike and Joe, for a great presentation, and have a great day.
Thank you all.
Thanks.